Welcome, viewers, those of you watching us live. This video is going to be edited down for the Onyx Path channel, but you are watching the full unedited version via my Patreon, so thank you very much for that. This is the first proper session of the Contagion Chronicle after we had character creation about 2 weeks ago, and we're ready to embark on our first session in the city of Odense, Denmark. So hopefully you're going to enjoy yourselves as a viewer, and hopefully the players will too. So this is the Contagion Chronicle in Odense, Denmark. The year is 2019. Our characters do not start as members of the Sworn or the False. Our characters do not start with knowledge of the Contagion or any of its habits, least of all in this particular city. Some of these characters know each other from the very start. Some of these characters have yet to meet. In this, our first session, we're going to experience an introduction of all of these characters, and hopefully by the end of it, they'll have reason to come together. And maybe they will encounter some agents of the Contagion, or some of those who wish to combat it. At the very least, the Contagion will affect them. But maybe with a little bit of luck, it won't infect them. But we're going to start this story with the fresh arrival of one Liza. Well, Liza to her friends. Her full name is Elizabeth Waters. She is a beast. She is of the Ingumar family. And for anyone who didn't watch our character creation, perhaps Morgan would like to tell us a little about Liza and why she's come to Odense.
Liza has come to Odense because she was reached out to by a former contact she had during her brief stint as a hunter in the Lucifuge. She's now no longer associated with that particular group, but is very much pursuing supernatural secrets, and the message that she received piqued that curiosity in the extreme.
Indeed, you've only been here a matter of days, not even weeks. You've just found your temporary lodgings here. You're currently staying in a hotel, and your first impressions of Odense is it's a small town. Not much seems to be going on here. There doesn't even seem to be that much of a thriving nightlife. The tales of how Danes handle themselves seem to hold true. They like to keep themselves, they like to drink among themselves. They prefer spending fun time back at home rather than going out, but that's by no means a widespread rule. It's just your first impressions. Worryingly, when you were invited to Odense, or perhaps it would be better to describe it as warned about Odense by your contact, your former companion from the Lucifuge, a conspiracy that's pretty hard to extract yourself from, except you had a fairly good reason when your bestial nature manifested. It wasn't on good terms. And the warning that reached you came in the form of a brief email from one Benjamin Vandemar. Now, Benjamin was a Danish American. You had operated with him as a hunter for a few years, and as far as you can measure it, they were productive. You certainly brought down some monsters, locked away a few spirits, furthered the aims of your conspiracy, which always felt to you like it was operating for the greater good. But you lost touch with Benjamin, as you lost touch with most of the members of your conspiracy, simply because of your nature. Those of them who knew what you had become either wanted you dead, or assumed you were dead because you made your way out of that conspiracy quickly. They certainly have the tools to bring down a beast, especially a young one. And so when you received an email from Benjamin, it came as somewhat of a surprise, because you had changed your methods of contact. You had changed dress. You had moved far away from the circles in which you were known. It would imply that the Lucifuge had been keeping track of you all this time, or at least this member had been. And the email was mysterious, alarming. Benjamin explained in it that he had been living in Odense, had been sent there by the conspiracy, but they had never explained why, or why he had been sent there alone. He said he should have smelt something was off immediately, that this isn't how the Lucifuge operates. He was being dropped in there to see whether something would bite. And as his email read, oh boy, did something bite. There is something seriously wrong in this city, Liza. The city itself wants to eat its inhabitants. The city itself is corroding the insides of those who live here. It wants them dead. It wants them dead by their own hand. And there is a force behind it, a force that Benjamin hasn't yet tracked down. But he needs help, and he doesn't trust his conspiracy to back him up. So he reached out to you. He asked you to come as quickly as you could. He gave you a time, a date, and a place for the two of you to meet. He requested, of all places, that you would join up outside Odense Zoo on the noon after your arrival. Seemed a strange place to meet, but Benjamin never arrived. And so now you're back at your hotel. You don't know what's become of him, where to even really start looking. All you have is this, could be paranoid rambling in the form of an email from a hunter who you always knew as pretty stoic and reliable. So I turn it over to you. What is Liza doing at this point with this information?
I think she would largely be at a loss when she would have gone to meet him. She would have been expecting a number of things, a trap, for example, or to actually have him be true to his word. She wouldn't have been expecting was for him not to be there at all. So immediately being the kind of mental problem solver that she is, she would try and start doing some research to see if she could find about him in the area. Anything that mentions him, obituaries, potentially start calling around for hospitals to see if anyone with his name had been admitted. Really trying to find out what had happened to him. She wouldn't give any of her, she wouldn't give her name when she called these places. She would be a slightly different story every time. You know, she's looking for her brother or boyfriend or any number of things, but really wants to track down and figure out what happened to him and where did he go. Did he just get in an accident on the way to the zoo, or did something find out they were going to be meeting and solve a problem?
I'm not going to make you roll for that, because you've thought it out well. You've considered the kinds of things that Liza would do, calling around the city, finding out what's what, checking the news, and so on. You don't find any report of Benjamin having been injured or murdered or anything like that happening in the last couple of days since he reached out to you. I guess he reached out to you about a week ago, giving you enough time to put your affairs in order and get here. There's certainly nothing like that. There is a record of Benjamin's involvement with the charity work, however. This is from about 3 weeks prior. Something to do with the Odense Library. Seems like the kind of thing he was doing. He was always a scholarly type, but it looks like he was running some kind of charity drive there at the library. While that could be written off as mundane, if he was sent here for a specific purpose by his conspiracy, once your conspiracy, you know that there could be a little more to it than that. Now, if you want to dig any deeper with your research, I am going to ask you to roll.
I think she would very much want to know what type of work he was engaged in, and if she could find anything more, though I don't know how much of that information would even be publicly accessible without going there. So a trip to the local library might be in order, I think.
Okay. Now, just to establish, obviously, as a beast, you may be aware of some of the other beasts hereabouts in the city. It's not like you all meet up at the same place, exchange business cards, and go your separate ways, but often primordials can sense one another and keep to their own territories. That was something you found when you approached the zoo that time. While you didn't encounter another primordial, you definitely got the sensation that there was some kind of lair there. It would be an appropriate location, you would think, if you were that way inclined, if that was the kind of beast you were. Yeah, the zoo, that would make a lot of sense. A lot of nightmares spring out for little children in a place like a zoo. But you certainly haven't encountered the beast that dwells there.
It's interesting. So there's a potential lead outside of the library in tracking down another beast. Now, I do have a question. I had wanted her actually to end up having her local library, the local library in Odense, as a potential chamber. Being cautious, she would have tried to establish that as soon as possible after arriving in town. Would she have already done so, or is that something that I should look towards her doing?
I think that's something you need to look towards your character doing.
Okay. With that in mind, that is probably where she would head next for now, because she very much feels the need to kind of establish some territory that's not probably directly adjacent to people that are setting up near the zoo, for example, and somewhere that will be relevant to her particular hungers and interests. So with any luck, not only will she find information that she's after, but she'll also find a potential chamber.
You do have a hunger for secrets and knowledge, don't you?
Yes, she does.
Okay, well, before we go back to Liza, let's take a look at what's going on with our unfleshed Promethean, Maya. Or M-A-I-A, if one was to be completely correct, but Maya as far as she's concerned. What does Maya do on an average night in Odense?
On an average night, Maya can be found prowling the more untoward sections of the city, not necessarily looking for trouble or looking for problems to solve. She's very curious about human behavior. She knows just from observation that humans act much differently at night, be it because, you know, they've had drinks or they're out with friends trying to impress somebody. And it's very interesting to her to see this kind of, you know, back and forth between somebody she might see in the day in a business suit and somebody, you know, she might see at night, that same person. You know, go ahead.
In that case, I think we've stumbled onto where your character may be, and it may even connect you to another character before you even expected it. Maybe you developed a fascination with one of the humans that you had encountered recently in the city. I like to think that Maya occasionally, as you say, she kind of picks up a scent, a tail, and just follows someone around. There's no threat there, although certainly the target might disagree. You just like to know how these people behave. You are, after all, an automaton, at least you were. And this place that you followed, a young lady, looks very similar to yourself as far as your awareness goes, took you to a place called the City Club. The City Club is a bar for LGBTQ plus people. It's a concept you are, of course, aware of, even if you don't necessarily understand it. And it's a thriving club, especially right now on a Friday night. Despite the fact your character is, of course, trying her best, it's still pretty daunting to go to a location like this, somewhere so packed with humanity. You have witnessed what happens when things get a little out of control and how humans can turn on creatures like you. But you want to know how your target behaves. So I'm going to ask you to describe, what is this person that you've made an attachment with? Where did you first encounter her? And what are you doing now? Are you following her into the club?
Maya would have first encountered her on the street outside of a cafe, and she would have been on the phone angrily speaking with somebody in the middle of an argument, which would have been the first thing to draw her attention. And just kind of watching and listening along to this conversation, she would have picked up a, "I love you too." And well, that's very interesting way for people to, I haven't seen that yet with people who love one another. So I think she would have followed her more to see how this angry side of love compares to the softer side that she's kind of been more introduced to. So I think she would have been very interested in following her and seeing how that manifested. And theoretically, maybe if she can follow her to the person she was arguing on the phone with, she might get better insight, if she can see them in person. So.
Okay, so you follow this young woman into the club, where, as I say, it's busy, busier than you would normally like, but that fascination, that desire to know more, drives you forward. You find your target sat at the bar, and the bar's heaving with people, but clearly this is a strong-willed individual. She's cleaved a path through the throng and taken a seat and ordered a drink. And it's not some fancy drink. There's no umbrella sticking out of it. This doesn't tell you anything about her personality beyond the fact that she wants a hard drink. You would measure it a double, maybe a triple, the bartender's being generous. And she slams it back before slamming the glass down on the bar and asking for another. Through your study of human behavior, you've seen this kind of thing in the movies all the time. There's always someone who's hard-bitten up against it, who wants one drink too many and doesn't know when to stop. How far you involve yourself in that, it's up to you. As you're standing there watching, you lose a little track of yourself. You get nudged and jostled by a few people who want to get to the bar past you. One young man says, "Hey, move it or lose it, lady," and cuts in front of you.
She wouldn't argue. She would let herself kind of be pushed out of the way. It is obviously, especially in a place like this, much easier to watch when you are out of the way than it is to be in the middle of any particular crowd. She isn't quite brave enough to go approach this woman yet. So she would make her way to the side of the bar, you know, not really in the attention of the bartender, but somewhere, you know, somewhere close, and kind of try to emulate what she would have seen other people eavesdropping at bars do. She'd kind of elbow up on the counter and, you know, just kind of people watch as maybe, you know, she can overhear something between the bartender and this woman, or this woman and another patron, or anything to explain, you know, the connection between her angry conversation and her slamming back these drinks and what happens next.
Okay, the music in the bar is pretty damn loud. You do kind of wish that she had occupied the pool hall, which is in the section that you are not in, because people are less likely to be shouting over the music. This does mean listening. Overhearing what exactly is being exchanged is quite hard without getting right up next to her. So I'm going to ask you to make a choice. You can either keep your distance and make a roll and try and pick up what she's saying to the older woman who's just gone up beside her and is trying to talk to her over the loud techno music that's belting out into the club, sending lots of people onto the dance floor, but not your quarry. Or you can move straight up next to her and perhaps be less discreet about your actions. You'll definitely hear what's being said, but you might also be called out for it.
Well, now that somebody else has got her target's attention, she's feeling a little less certain about keeping her distance. With this new person in the picture, Maya would kind of push her way back into the front of the crowd and be near enough to the woman that, you know, as she orders and waits for her drink, she could more easily overhear this conversation. But that's what she would do. She would go and put herself as close to this woman as possible and raise her hand for the bartender's attention with the intent to waste time, you know, doing what people do at bars. And that's what she's going to do.
Yeah, okay. The act is a perfect emulation of how someone might behave at a bar, signaling for a drink. Clearly, your Promethean has been studying human behavior well, and, you know, or at least basically. So you do pick up on what's being said. It's a simple exchange. The older woman, long curled hair down to her shoulders, is offering your target a drink, maybe some fun. Let's get away from here, have a dance, let your hair down, she says. None of her words are breaking through the veneer, the shell that your target has erected around herself. And you think you can tell why. Every single time this old woman urges and jostles, and she's clearly a little drunk, your target's jawline is clenching. And it's something you can appreciate from an aesthetic perspective, that mechanical clamp down of jaws, teeth together. You can see the cheekbones working through the skin. There's something hypnotic about that. Something almost reminiscent about when you've practiced expressions in the mirror. She's just getting more and more angry until finally she just hisses through her teeth at this older woman, and you hear every word just because of how close you are. Do I look like I'm here for a good time? Buy me a drink and then fuck off. The older woman doesn't buy her a drink, but does fuck off. Now, before we get back to Maya, I would like to find out what Connor is doing on a night like this. Connor, our changeling.
Yes. What day of the week is it?
We are on a Friday night.
Ah, well, Connor is definitely out and about. I mean, it is not only what spring is about, but as was said before, we were talking about, or actually we were talking offline about how people gather here and how that there are a lot of small private we get-togethers, but Friday nights are for the big thing. Friday nights are for going out. Like it's traditional, and that tradition matters. So very much out at one of the clubs. That's a very spring thing here, and specifically, we have decided that the court, I don't know if they own, but they pretty much run this specific club that we're talking about. They may own it. I'm not sure. That's up to you. But so he's probably there. And about what time? We're not towards the end of the night. This is still fairly early, correct?
I would put it down as about 9 p.m. So for the sake of everyone else, that means the library is still open. The library stays open till late. So, but your spring court in Odense does run one of the clubs, the Cat and Mouse.
Okay.
And it's a fairly popular club. It's seen better days, but you could say the same thing for the spring court in Odense generally. One of the most popular clubs in Odense at this time is the Slaughterhouse, which, despite having a fantastic name, has no lost affiliation, not yet. You're aware that there are a bunch of autumnal changelings that hang around in Odense. They don't have much congregation, but there's been talk that changelings have got to run a night venue here. We've got to take, one of them's got to be a booming court. And if spring is waning and summer's not moving in, come on, autumn court, Slaughterhouse. The two go together pretty nicely. So there's a little bit of rivalry there. But the spring court's a sad state of affairs. They're a bit dusty and creaky. Yeah. So if you're heading to the Cat and Mouse to meet up with your peers, then by all means you can do so. If you'd rather go to the Slaughterhouse and rub shoulders with some autumn court changelings, then you could do that instead.
Well, it being 9 o'clock, I'm probably going to do the natural thing, which is go to the Cat and Mouse because the drinks are significantly cheaper from me. And then in an hour or two, head out and go to the other clubs while I'm already feeling nice and don't need to buy as many drinks when I get there. So I'm probably first going to stop at the Cat and Mouse, schmooze with, my court friends, make sure everything's on the up and up, because I am spring, but I also am the one who takes care of problems for the spring. In that I am spring, but I am naturally able to, beat the crap out of people that are giving us trouble. So I like to make sure at the club that we aren't having any, we need a bouncer problems, because I'm not the club's bouncer, but I take care of the things that the bouncer won't take care of.
Lovely. Okay, you head into the Cat and Mouse. Probably just as well. Slaughterhouse won't open for another couple of hours. It's not that kind of club. Whereas the Cat and Mouse, on a Friday night like this, a little more active. They even serve food. So, what kind of club is this? Right now, it's live music. There's a white guy playing an acoustic guitar on the stage. You wish the spring court hadn't fallen to this level, but this is where we are. And there's a small crowd here. Mostly families by the look of it, a few couples. This isn't where people go to have a good time these days, nor these nights, or maybe not on a Friday night. You recognize some of your peers from the Spring Court. You recognize Jenny. She's an ogre who is often found around this place. She's getting on little in years, but is always known to have a good time if plied with enough alcohol, berries, or just has her adrenaline up. You can see the lady of the court is in attendance as well, but no one is attending to her. The Lady of Spring, Lady Goldacre, is sat in her own booth. Looks like she's playing solitaire with cards. She's quite obviously keeping herself to herself, isn't expecting any kind of business tonight. There's a couple more changelings. You see someone from Winter is here. You don't know whether it's on business or whether it's just a social call. You don't recognize, well, you can't remember their name off the top of your head, but they're speaking to another Spring Courtier that you know, Jeffrey. Jeffrey's a cunning young sort, sometimes a bit of a rival of yours for swagger and accomplishment, but you two get on, unless you're in competition with each other, in which case there's a rivalry there.
Okay. Well, I would definitely go up to the bar, get myself a drink, say hi to the bartender, make sure nothing untoward's going on, just in that almost the unspoken, well, not the fully unspoken, but the, hey, you had any trouble? And do I get anything? Do we have any issues?
Bartender just shakes his head. No, okay. not really, Connor. It's a quiet Friday night, which I know is a tragic tragic assembly of words, but it's a quiet Friday night, like every Friday night. He shrugs. The bartender isn't a changeling, but knows all of you well enough to know you're in some kind of clique. Yeah. It makes no assumptions really on what you are: religious group, political organization, gaming group. He shrugs, gives you your usual, a pint of real ale. They have a guest ale every week because they're that kind of hip and trendy bar.
Oh yeah.
Gives you a guest ale. This one's called Crop Circle, he says.
I thank him, toast him, and I'm going to head towards the Lady Goldacre. I just want to see if she's actually playing solitaire or if she's doing something strange, because she tends to do a lot of strange things.
She does. So you don't become the lady of the court by being normal all the time.
Absolutely. So I'm going to make sure, to head in that direction, more in the very obvious spying way. Like, I'm not trying to hide. I'm going to see what she's doing. And if she really is playing solitaire, I'm going to leave her alone. Because, that game has a name for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Again, no role required here. You're describing what you're doing. It's not that difficult to pass by and get a sense of what she's up to. You can tell that to any mortal passing by who's never witnessed an ounce of glamour, solitaire is exactly what she would be playing. Okay. You can see there's a little more to the cards than that. You can see what's going on here. You're not sure whether she's fiddling around with a token of her choosing. She does like to play with cards quite often. This is definitely something of importance to her. And you've seen these cards occasionally. It's like all of them have moving images on them. You've never got a straight answer from her, which is pretty typical of Lady Goldacre. She doesn't give a straight answer often about what the cards do, whether it's some kind of fortune telling, whether it's communication with other changelings. She seems to vary her responses every now and then, but you can see that she's laying cards on top of each other as if playing a game of solitaire, and occasionally those cards glow slightly or dim slightly or crackle with power slightly. for her part, she doesn't react to any of this. She's not joyous that she's won or sad that she's lost or at all expressive. She's just studying the cards intently.
Okay. That follows with what I expect of her. I will leave her be then, because in the past, bothering her while she's doing this tends not to work out so well. So, as it is a Friday night, and one should be in a place a little bit more exciting than this.
Hey, Connor, just as you're about to make a decision, you are beckoned over by Jeffrey, your sometime rival.
Ah, Jeffrey. Well, I will absolutely head on over to the chair or booth or bar, wherever he is, and ask him, hail him and ask him how the night is.
No, not bad, Connor. What do you think of the suit? What do you think of the threads? He gestures down to himself. He's bought a new suit. He's dressed in a three-piece, has his waistcoat, has a pocket square. It's all very dapper.
I mean, I think it looks great if you're headed to a wedding, a formal affair. It's an interesting and ballsy choice for a Friday night club. But honestly, you're rocking it, man. So, keep that up. You might want to add a hat, though.
Yeah, really? Well,
it's got to be the right hat.
I don't think you're taking my choice of clothing seriously, Connor. And you're right. This isn't the kind of outfit I'd wear to a club, especially not a dive like our club. This is the kind of outfit I would wear to an exclusive party like the one I'm headed to tonight, and not the one that you're going to. And I don't think hats would be appropriate. They're very passé. There was a period of time, lasted about 2 months, where the guys were wearing hats. And I know you never got the memo that that period of time finished, but it did. So it may be time to hang up the trilby, Connor. Those days are gone. Anyway, before you try and riposte, I should really introduce you to my friend. He's someone you want to get to know.
Please do. I would love to meet anyone who is a friend of yours as a friend of mine.
Oh, I know. This is Takami. The Winter Courtier is East Asian in appearance. Takami isn't from around here, if you couldn't tell. But he really wants to get to know our city. But here's the thing, and I don't know how many Winter Courtiers you do know in Odense, but I don't know that many. I know that we used to have a few, but they've all gone quiet lately. Now, I just assume that was court politics. The Winter crew like to keep to themselves. But Takami hasn't been able to find any of them either. Been looking at all the usual spots, been hanging out down at the gardens in the middle of the night, and nothing, nobody, certainly nothing, no lost like us, So, egg on my face for asking you, I know, but have you heard anything? Lady Goldacre's being as evasive as you would expect.
So when was the last time I did see any member of the Winter Court? Has it been about as long as he says?
Well, you've seen Takami before. You think you saw him about last week, now that you're putting your dots together. And he wasn't here. You think you saw him at the slaughterhouse, actually. But he is Winter. You heard it there as well. And come to think of it, aside from Takami, you've probably not seen a Winter Courtier for a couple of months. And that's not that uncommon. Winter and spring aren't always hand in hand. But now that you come to think of it, it is a little strange. You've heard nothing. Then again, it would be stranger still if something had happened and Lady Goldacre didn't tell you.
Hmm. She is a bit strange, though. Okay, so I'll tell him. Well, I stop. Think. I haven't seen anyone recently other than Takami. Have we asked the lady?
Yeah, I asked her up front. Takami's a good guy, staying with me temporarily. Because he was supposed to, this is the thing, he was supposed to be staying with one of the members of his court when he got here. That's what he was supposed to be doing.
Oh, okay.
And he turns up at the house. No one's there. He's not going to just break in because you don't know what's behind that door.
Mm-mm.
And so first thing he does is try and find more of us. He goes to the slaughterhouse, gets to spend a few nights on a couch of an autumnal, and a few nights is about all you want to spend on the couch of an autumnal. So then he comes here, wants to know if we've heard anything. And I asked Lady Goldacre earlier tonight, and she pretty much told me to leave her alone is the nicest way of putting it.
That is, well, that makes me worry less in some ways, because she'd tell us if there was anything truly serious going on.
He lowers his voice. Well, I would have said that. But what if she just doesn't know? I mean, obviously we place an awful lot of faith in her. She's been around a lot longer than we have, and that's fine. But this isn't a city where all the courts are singing and dancing in the city square with each other.
It's true.
I mean, least of all Spring. We're a laughing stock.
Yeah, and I know that we need to work on that, but we need to sit down and come up with a plan to deal with this place or find another, because, well, when the place everyone comes to find you is a place like this, it really doesn't represent Spring too well now, does it?
No, this guy on the stage right now sounds like James Blunt, and if he's Spring, there's no hope for us.
I mean, this is a great family restaurant, and perhaps it could be converted to such, but that's not what we need.
No. Anyway, I do have a place I need to be tonight.
Yes. Okay.
So, Takami, this is Connor. You can look after him now. He pats both of you on the back and leaves you as the babysitter for the tourist.
Yep. Yeah, I had a feeling that was about to happen.
I'm going to jump at this point to the last of us who has not received an introduction, being Thomas Warwick Shields. Thomas, what are you doing with your Friday night?
I've worked the full shift at my day job, which is from 10 to 7, and have been at the city club from about finishing till about 9 o'clock to sort of like I've tipped them well enough to get the Wi-Fi password, so I can kind of just do my research while I'm there. I tend to order a glass of water, don't drink alcohol, usually kind of just ice water. The staff is well aware of that being a thing. They think it's an eccentricity or me trying to get off the wagon or something. But I try to make a point to leave enough money in tips to not seem kind of too haughty or too arrogant about it. So it's been mostly just 2 hours of checking the news if there's been anything hugely interesting in the news that might warrant investigation. I've checked emails and messages from Kalia or from other contacts I would have if they have anything that they need me to look into. And yeah, that's it for the 2 hours up until right now.
So you are currently in the City Club, drinking your non-alcoholic beverage. The music...
Probably in the billiard hall where it's a bit like quieter, not with the crowd. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, in fact, you're surprised by how loud the music is. It's a very different feel to 9 p.m. on a Friday. Usually the City Club doesn't really start getting banging until later at night. So maybe it's someone's party, maybe they've got a new DJ in, maybe someone just fucked up the speakers and hasn't bothered to adjust them. But it's certainly making people pour out onto the dance floor earlier than usual. This is only to your irritation, because you want to spend the time quietly getting on with things in a place that you know and trust. You've got a strong desire to actually go over to the main bar and say, what the hell is going on with the music tonight? Usually it's quieter right now, but the club is thriving for this early at night. You, before you can do so, there's a hand claps on your shoulder.
All right.
Thomas. Then there's another hand on your shoulder. You get shaken side to side. You recognize that grip on both shoulders from anywhere. Garrett, one of your pack mates, a fellow Ivory Claw, giving you the rough treatment. I knew I'd find you here, Thomas.
I just sort of let him shake me about it. Like I'll try to be passive about it, like not try to. Yeah, I'm just trying to find some peace and quiet.
Yeah, well, you know how I knew I'd find you here.
Do tell.
The smell of perfume followed you all the way from Magazine, all the way here. Okay. You reek like a old woman's purse. Do you mind if I take a seat?
No, go ahead.
Why do you spend your time, he sits down, in a festering pool like this? You know, remember what you are. And I have to tell you, Thomas, I'm pretty good at picking these things up. And I spoke to Kalir and I said, are we sending Thomas to the City Club every weekend because there's some kind of great big gash in the shadow? Are we just waiting for Bechalou to pour out and infest these poor suckers that dance in here all night? And she said, no, it's just what he does. He likes to hang around with the humans.
I don't hang around with the humans. They
hang around with you.
We're living in a city. The humans are everywhere. It's kind of unavoidable.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I like to go to a clubs as well. I like to have a good time. It's just you pick some interesting locations to take your alone time, I guess. You like to rub shoulders like for like. You like to rub shoulders with people like you. But, you know, the pack likes to get together, and you do love to break free from that. What do you think you are? Some kind of Ronin thinking you can just spend your nights doing things all by yourself, and that will welcome you back with open arms every single night? You're still new blood. You still need to prove yourself. Just because you opened your father's throat doesn't mean we trust you yet. You've not really proven yourself, have you? He's getting uncomfortably close.
I'm still. I mean, he's obviously not intimidating me, but he's sort of like I know not to respond aggressively or try to challenge it anyway. I try to stay as calm as possible, and I say I do want to prove myself, and I will get to the point where I will, but I want to prove it without showing the weakness of needing everybody's help, to prove that I can bring my own strength to the pack.
You feel you've got to do that on your own to really show that you're worth it. You feel like you can't rely on your brothers and sisters?
I do. It's still, all of it is a lot. It's still new, and I suppose I still don't think that I'm quite worthy of running with a pack, even though I should feel that way.
You might be right. You might be right. You might not be worthy. I mean, we've all had to kill. Don't tell all the mortals in here, but we've all had to spill a little blood. And it must have been hard for you to kill your old man. I mean, how did...
Surprisingly not.
No. It's all right. He grabs you by the shoulders again. It's all right. We'll make a man out of you, Thomas. Because that's clearly what you want to be. Prove us wrong. Why not prove us wrong? Go off on your own track. Show what an ivory claw you can be. How pure of mind and spirit you are. Then why don't you come back to us? Prove us wrong. Prove the doubts in our heads and your head wrong.
Fair enough.
Do you know how tempting it is in a place like this to just massacre all of these deviants? Do you know that temptation?
On a Friday, of course I know. I mean, it's on a night like it's usually not as hectic and as claustrophobic as it is tonight. Of course I feel it, but I think strengthening myself against the urge is a form of purifying too, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we're not predator kings, are we?
No.
Okay. I just came here really to bust your balls a little, to make you a little uncomfortable. Why don't you head over to that bar?
Right.
And buy us both a good drink. Not just iced water. I'll be waiting here. I'll put a few coins into the pool table, get a few balls out for us. We'll knock them around together. That's what you like to do, isn't it?
I'm terrible at pool, but
Even
what
better.
can you beat me?
We'll put money on it then.
Fair enough. I go down to the bar and I'm just going to, I guess, order him a bitter or like I'm not sure what kind of type he seems to be, but just
An asshole.
the most macho. Well, yeah. I mean, not just the most macho, straightforward drink I could possibly get. And also for me, even though I will not be enjoying a single drop of it. So it means same drinks for both of us, so yeah.
As you head down to the bar and you order your drinks, you've got them in your hands. You're about to make your way back. And it's at that point that a young woman at the bar stands up, pushes someone back, another woman, older than her, and tells her to fuck the fuck off. The older woman crashes into you. The drinks spill. You hear a cackle of laughter all the way from over on the other side of the club in the pool hall, where clearly your packmate Garrett is watching all of this go on. You've now got beer down you. Of course, Maya is stood right there as well at the bar. It's her target who's just pushed that old woman back. The old woman came back to the bar with a fresh arsenal to say, "How dare you speak to me like that?" The young woman had enough of that. She got out of her stool. She pushed the old woman away. She crashed into you. And there we have a nice moment where two characters converge. But before they do, we're going to go back to Liza. So, Liza, you are heading to the library, if I recall.
That is correct. Trying to make a place a little bit of home and keep digging into the disappearance of her contact.
Okay, well, the library is still open this late at night. It will be open till midnight, usually used, of course, by students, often medical students. It's got a very good medical library here. And the predatory part of you, as you pass into the library at this late at night, it's not full by any means, but there's enough people here to imply safety. But there are dark corridors. The library is fairly distant from the rest of the city, from the rest of the built-up area, and the street lights around here often don't work. That predatory part of you, the thing that makes you a beast, the thing that makes you thrive on nightmares, you can't help but eye up every avenue of terror in a place like this, where someone would become too scared to even come to this place. But it's best to push it away. You're here for a specific reason. You're not here to just mess around with students and give them nightmares, are you?
No, but as she notices all of these, she'd wonder, has anything happened here before that would make this place already a suitable chamber? Or once she's done her research, is she going to have some work to do herself to see about making that happen?
Well, that's something for you to look into. I think, given your character's interest or obsession with books and hidden knowledge, it would certainly make sense that you've scouted out the library and smaller bookstores and the like around the city. It wasn't that long ago that there was an attack that took place just on the library steps. Someone left late at night and was mugged, and that mugging went wrong, and the victim, didn't just lose their wallet, they lost their lives. It certainly cut down the number of people attending the university for a while. Not the university, sorry, the library for a while. Now, the troubling thing for you is that isn't really a fear of knowledge. It's not a fear of what's contained within the library. It's more a fear of the dark and the strangers that come to places like this. But maybe it could be harnessed.
Interesting. Yeah, she would. Liza would be interested in doing that, but again, trying to narrow her focus onto at least the thing that initially drove her here. So she would look for a member of the staff and inquire after Benjamin, since he was involved in.
There's a couple of members of staff still working here this late at night. One is at the counter. Another one is doing paperwork in an office behind a door. So you approach the one at the counter?
Yes.
How can I help you, miss?
Hey there. I'm looking for a good friend of mine, Benjamin, and out of character, actually. Do not recall his last name.
Vandermar, but that's fine.
Benjamin Vandermar. I know he was doing some work here. I thought he should be here right now, actually, but I don't see him anywhere.
Benjamin hasn't been in now for... She checks. He was doing some volunteer work here. Most of us are volunteers. Yes, it looks like Benjamin last punched in about 4 days ago. He did seem very unwell.
Huh.
So I'm assuming he's off sick. I'm not the boss. That's the guy behind the guy in the office. So if anyone would have received the call, it would have been him. I mean, usually we're told, she starts going off. Usually we're told if someone's off sick, everyone in the library knows about it pretty quickly because we've got to arrange cover. But Benjamin's always taken up with various things. If he was a paid worker here, he probably would have been let go by now. But as he volunteers, we can't really pick and choose when he turns up.
All right. Well, is the boss back there, is that who I would talk to if I was interested in volunteering? Because that's actually what Benjamin and I were talking about. I was just
Oh, sure. Usually during the day, not in the evening, but I can ask him. He may just want to give you an application form.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll be back in a sec. She turns around, heads over to the office. Is there anything you want to rummage with or investigate while she is away from her post?
Not yet. Liza's interest in this is actually twofold. Hopefully, to get some kind of easier access to the building itself if she does decide to incorporate it into her lair. Getting keys, something like that, by being a legitimate employee would allow her that type of access. But she would turn her attention somewhat away from her going back to talk to the boss and kind of scope out everyone else who's present in the library right now, see if any of them set off her family resemblance, see if there's any indication of supernatural activity here at all. Trying to kind of blindly feel out the water to see, why was he here?
I'm glad you're doing that. As she's away, yes, in terms of setting off your family resemblance, you do pick up on one student. You assume it's a student. It's a young woman, well, you think mid-20s, sat at one of the long reading tables and appears to be doing some kind of maybe coursework for university. The woman at the table, she projects a, well, what's the best way to put it? A cool, frigid aura, but her eyes burn like green fire.
Interesting.
She is writing feverishly. That's what you notice, probably more than anything else. It's not a quiet study. She's got books around her and she is scribbling down. There's a closed laptop. She's not typing. She's writing with her hand and a pen, and she's doing it quite frantically. Before you can pay more attention to her, you get a behind you.
Oh, right. An application?
Well, he's actually said, and I should have known better, we stopped doing applications 2 months ago. You'd need to apply online. But if you're interested, we are definitely looking for people. No doubt about that. Especially people who can speak multiple languages.
Liza would just kind of nod and kind of wave a little dismissively, like, yeah, I'll put in the application on my phone like right away, and not even really engage with the conversation before wandering away to towards the woman that is writing so feverishly in her notebook.
You hear behind you, if you hear anything from Benjamin, let us know. At which point you're over by the person writing.
So Liza would kind of, is there a table with multiple seats?
Yes, it's a long table between tall bookcases. So this is, and divided up with lots of chairs, a couple of benches as well. This is a library that's caught between old tradition and modernity. Certainly there's enough for everyone here. Kind of speaks for Odense in a lot of ways.
So Liza would slide into one of the chairs nearby and not make any attempt to hide the fact that she was kind of watching what the person was scribing so furiously. And then after a few moments, it'd be like, you look like you've been bitten by a creative bug, or your laptop's not working.
She immediately folds the paper over, glares at you, those green burning eyes fixed on you. Do I look like I want to be interrupted?
Liza would be notably a little taken back about that, because she forgets sometimes that not everyone's as open about discussing these potentially curious matters as she is. And then she'd shrug softly and say, probably not, but I was kind of getting some pretty frigid vibes from you from across the room, and I couldn't help but notice, I'm new in town. You seem to be
Frigid
fairly...
vibes. What are you trying? No, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you the same bit of advice that I have given every single person that has tried to interfere with what I'm doing. I'm just going to be upfront with it. Don't care who you are. Don't care what you are. And I don't want you to care about me either. I'm getting out of here. And here's my advice to you. Get out of here. What I'm writing is advice to other people to get out of here. And by here, I mean Odense. This city is done. We've reached the end of winter, but we're not entering a new season. It's the end of the line. You understand? There is no cycle. We're done. I'm the last one. I'm closing the door. If that's not clear to you, then I'm sorry. But I need to write these letters, and they need to be written. The people I'm writing to don't use email. But I can't waste my time on someone I don't know. So that's what you get from me. I hope that 20 to 30 seconds was worth it.
Liza wouldn't back down just yet. She'd be like, that actually sounds really familiar to a warning that I heard from a friend of mine named Benjamin. Said something about how the city could really eat you alive if you stayed too long. You don't happen to know. I'm actually here looking for him. Don't suppose you happen to have heard about actually any of the volunteers here? Anything having happened to them, or more specifics about the city? It seems like a friendly place to me. I don't really get that vibe. Really that it's almost like out to get the people who live in it. But you're the second person I've heard say that.
She leans over the table. It's a small city, shitbird. We all know each other, and yes, of course, I have heard of your friend Benjamin who volunteered here. It's why most of us ignore this place, but he's gone, so I'm here because I needed to get a lot of information from some very old books. Usually we have to cross paths, well, make sure he's out when we come in like we're some jilted lovers, but really it's because we don't know when he's going to stab us. So I'm assuming you're in that kind of cadre with him. I'm not wasting my time or energy on trying to work out what you are. Just get this in your head. I don't care about you. Benjamin's not here anymore. And if he tried to warn you to get out, well, maybe you should have listened to him. Maybe he should have listened to himself. Maybe that's why he's not here anymore. Maybe he's gone. Maybe he escaped, just like the rest. And that's what I'm trying to do. She stuffs the paper into a backpack that she slings over her shoulder.
That's interesting. So at this point, Liza would do a couple things, both to pursue learning more about what her next steps should be, and also to kind of make an active demonstration, if you will, that she is not quite of the same type as Benjamin. So I'm going to use the active effect of her Mimir's Wisdom atavism to, once per story, request information from the storyteller that sheds the light on the problem at hand. But it's information that never identifies a specific person. And by using an atavism, then her horror becomes visible to the person. But I think the question I would like to ask is, where should I go next to shed the most light on what is going on with this city?
Good question. There's a couple of answers I can give you to that. One is find out where Benjamin lived or lives. Because if he was researching, he might have found something. The second option relates to this person you're with right now. And you either follow her to where she makes her home or meets her companions, or snatch those letters from her to find out where they're due to be sent and what exactly they say. The path lies on one of those two branches. You keep following up the path of Benjamin, your former hunter ally, or you go after this changeling.
Well, at this point,
You could do both.
yeah, Liza has mostly kind of written off Benjamin as dead, because the changeling's words kind of settled rather deep in her mind about maybe that's why he is gone now. So after making her brief demonstration by allowing her horror, which is that amalgamation of words and runes and stuff showing up, is the changeling still seated, or did she move to leave already?
She was getting up to put the backpack on, but now that she's actually seen your true nature, I guess, in full force, she trips backwards over her seat, lands on her ass, stands up, shaking, pointing. That was rude. That was very rude. I like it. It's bold as brass. And that's refreshing. But that was very rude. You don't just drop the cowl on someone you've never met before. So I'm pleased to have got to meet you. You know, everyone else in my court calls your kind of person a freak. Like an autumnal wet dream, nightmares walking around on two legs. But I appreciate what you bring to the table. I still don't want to know you. So if that was your way of speed dating me, I'm sorry. I'm moving on to the next person.
That's the point that Liza would lower her voice a little bit and be like, you know, maybe Benjamin was the wrong lead here. I do things. You might be familiar with my rather close family, but I doubt you've met any, or any of your people have met any quite like me. I literally have an occult library where my soul should be. So if you were coming here to do research, if you were have any interest at all in figuring out what's happening, clue me in a little bit. I can probably help you out.
If you'd arrived a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I would be more than happy to dive headfirst into your soul and start pulling bits of it out to read. And that's a very enticing offer, believe me. There's not many girls that chat me up like that. But my trajectory is out, not deeper in. What I can tell you, though, is for whatever reason, those maniacs in the Spring Court, who we'd all written off as complete losers, are sticking this one out. They're riding the wave. They think that the cycle is going to roll straight back round to spring, and when it does, they'll be in full bloom. They're wrong. They are wrong. But Lady Goldacre, she's sure. She's planted her flag in the sand. They will more than happily pick your soul apart to find out what's going on, so they can ride the dragon and say, we conquered Odense. Winter is leaving. And right now, as far as I know, I'm all that's left of these precious snowflakes. So maybe our paths will cross again. But I dare say it won't be here.
Where could I find them? The ones that aren't running away?
They like to hang around a bar where wrinkly white guys play guitars. Trying to remember the name. Yes, it is. It really, really is. I mean, we used to hang out in the park, which isn't much better. There's only so many things you can do in Odense, but that's by the by. We don't do that anymore. There's a big gap in, I guess the best way to put it would be, life in that park now. So we're moving on. We're moving on. You need to go to it's a bar. It's supposed to be a club, but it's a bar called the Cat and Mouse. It's easy enough to find. Look it up on your phone. You'll be able to tell which. Well, I know you'll be able to tell which ones are lost. And I don't know why I'm doing you this favor. I guess it's because you haven't been hostile. Lady Goldacre doesn't like people just going up to her without an invitation or having a good deed done for the Spring Court. She believes that the process of fertility and rebirth is all about reciprocation, as she would probably put it. Or vis-a-vis, I go, you need to give me something before I give you something, and that kind of nonsense. So, you know, harass her friends, harass the other idiots who work with her, but don't get in Lady Goldacre's hair, because she can, she does, she will make your life a living hell.
Noted and appreciated. I will harass everyone else. Happy to pass along your regards if I knew your name.
I'll be sending my own separate letter to Lady Goldacre. I'm not going to trust it into the hand of someone I only just met 20 minutes ago.
That's totally reasonable. You have been very helpful. Hopefully the whole pessimistic thing doesn't end up being a realistic thing, and this is something we can actually do about the city. But hey, helpful. So I will go to that club.
Hey, if you want to remember my name, you're going to have to learn it first. So I'll be seeing you. And off she heads, back in tow. Now we will cut back to the nightclub. But before we do, I'm just going to check with my players. Is everyone happy with the order of things? Obviously, all the characters haven't met up yet, but I feel this has been quite good for establishing characters and their environments. Okay, I'm not hearing any cries of "no, this is bullshit." And hopefully that means it's entertaining for the viewers as well. I want this chronicle to be a good one, a detailed one, and that means the characters should feel at home in their environment, even if they are new to it. And admittedly, most of the NPCs, most of the supporting characters they're encountering right now appear to be complete shits. But there's a reason for it, and we'll get to it. So we're going to go back to the City Club, where, through sheer happenstance, Maya and Thomas have encountered each other, though they've not had direct contact. Maya has just seen a wiry-looking fellow, very pale, have 2 drinks spilled over him. And perhaps the desire to find out what the natural human reaction should be at this point: embarrassment, anger, humiliation, and what Maya should do, conciliation, laughter, mocking, buy him another drink. All these thought processes are probably going through the Promethean's head. But Maya, what is going on with your created?
So Maya doesn't really know what to do with embarrassment yet. It's not really a situation that she would have encountered much. What she would know of it is that the best thing to do is to try and just kind of pretend it didn't happen. So the best way she can do that in this case is to hurry over to this, wiry man and kind of, put herself between him and I guess the rest of the club, just as a barrier of sorts. And, hey, it's really tough. Let's go get you some more to drink, and kind of usher him away from the crowd and trouble brewing, and hopefully out of whatever bar brawl is about to happen, apparently.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was about to say, Sebastian, the floor is yours. So we will actually have two characters interacting with each other.
So the initial response of having been knocked into by the old lady was almost having to pull myself together not to snap at her, because it's a very tense moment. Tense situation upstairs, or wherever the billiard room is. I was going to just leave her on the floor, just sort of try to pull myself together and just ignore the human woman altogether. But this actually seems like an almost very opportune moment to not hide something, but disguise something efficiently. So I will say yes to the drink and kind of look up to my packmate and kind of make an expression as though to say, lady driving, buying me a drink, kind of just, I guess, sort of make a gesture suggesting, look who I might be picking up, kind of situation, I guess. And I'll just say to her, thank you very much. Nice to meet you. My name is Thomas.
I would reply and say, it's very nice to meet you as well, Thomas. My name is Maya. And I would, try to make small talk like I've seen people do. And, well, do you come here often?
I enjoyed here. I work a lot. I work 2 jobs. I don't get much time as I'd like. But it's always nice to, in situations like that, to have somebody actually, I don't know, just be nice for a change. So.
What is nice?
Being considerate, I guess that's an interesting question.
There's a bark across the club. It's more of a bark than a shout of Garrett shouting, Thomas, I asked for a drink. Asked for a drink, Thomas. He's shouting. I'm not going to suck it off your tits, Thomas. And stop chatting up that girl, because I know she's not your type.
Great. Okay. I'll just say that's quietly, in hopes that even to a werewolf's ears, it's not going to carry all the way upstairs. I'm just going to say, it's a friend of mine you wouldn't want to meet. I say friend, but it's an acquaintance you wouldn't like to meet. So thanks anyway. This actually helped. And I order a second drink to go with the drink that she's bought me, and I carry it upstairs.
What's Maya doing? Has Maya now found a new object of fascination?
She has. Maya is insanely curious as to why this person who just told her he comes here, to find nice people and to hang out with people who are kind and considerate, would have a friend who is very obviously not any of these things that he said nice is. So maybe that's what people need to be to get paid attention to. Obviously, the woman who had her attention was kind of mean, and Thomas's friend is kind of not so nice. So she's gonna go see what's up with that. So she's gonna follow them.
Okay, well, Thomas arrives back in the pool hall carrying his 2 drinks. Garrett snatches his away. and drinks a hefty swig of it before slamming it down. And he's about to say something mocking.
Sure. I'm shocked. I'm shocked, but
But just as he does, he looks over Thomas's shoulder.
Thomas has not been paying attention to who's following, so he just sort of do the awkward turn of what are you looking at, kind of. Yeah.
Did you bring her for me?
I didn't bring anything. I mean, I brought the drinks, but no.
Yeah, I only asked for a drink. Thomas, my wife would kill me. Hello, he says, addressing Maya. Are you lost?
No, I know exactly where I am. I'm here to see why Thomas is friends with someone who's not very nice.
Oh, are you a friend of Thomas's?
Maybe. I think I'm nice, so maybe.
He looks at Thomas. Are you doing community outreach, Thomas? Are you helping simple folk with simple problems?
Out of character, I'm about to just biting down the urge to do a very stinging remark, but about simple folks. But anyway, I just respond that I don't know who this person is. She might have had a few drinks too many. Just let's take this somewhere else.
No. I like her. Come, sit down. Sit down with us.
Maya is not going to sit down. Maya doesn't like this guy at all. So she's going to ignore him and, tell Thomas that it was very nice to meet him, that she's very sorry that he's friends with such people who are not so nice to him, and maybe he should find better friends next time. And she is going to go see if she can't find where her pretty lady friend went, because she is far more interested in that than this mean man who thinks people are drinks to be brought to him.
As you say, Thomas.
Yeah, I'll
getting close. Nice and close.
Yeah.
Don't you think she smells a little funny? And I don't mean in a vulgar way.
Do I have to roll something particular to sense it? Now that he's mentioned it, do I?
Yeah, you could. I think that would be a good idea. Let's. Are there two stats you think you would roll together for something like this?
I'm thinking maybe perception something.
Perception.
Yeah.
Perception isn't an attribute in Chronicle.
Oh, sorry. Shoot. Yeah, no.
That's all right. It's a mistake I always make. But it is a common combination.
Maybe wits perception?
Wits and survival would probably do it.
Not well, but I'll roll it. So, okay. Got the online dice roll. Just gonna take a second.
This is our first die roll of the game.
It's 2 successes.
2 successes, yes. She does feel very strange or very smell. She does have an odd scent about her in that the first thing you notice with 2 successes is she doesn't really have one. That's what you pick up.
Not just neutral, there's nothing, there's a void of scent.
Exactly.
Okay.
But then with your second success, you pick up something that is almost like it's coming through the shadow. There's something a bit confusing there. It's a mixture of buzzing ozone, like electric crackling, and sparks flying off of metal, like a welding odor. There's a fire there, an unnatural fire, and it's like something is being crafted with a very hot flame.
Okay, I lean in even closer and say, like, all this bullshit aside, like, do we keep her on? What do we do?
Don't get so close, Thomas. I don't want to kiss. Follow her. That's what you do. You follow interesting prey. Remember, you're a hunter. I've got my drink. It's my night off. You follow her. You find out what she is. You find out what she's about. I've heard of things like her before that aren't strictly on the level. What you need to find out is whether something hard and automated like that is an Aslu hive waiting to burst. You understand? They like this kind of unnatural behavior.
Absolutely, yes.
So buy her a drink. You're good at that. Just don't spill it.
Right. Enjoy the billiards, enjoy the drinks. And so if I turn back to Maya and say, you know what? Let's have another drink between the two of us.
Maya is very glad that Thomas has decided he doesn't want to be around mean people, so she is going to take him to the bar and they're going to go get a drink.
I'm buying the drinks because he's been raised properly, so yeah.
Maya would have absolutely no concept of that, but she likes not spending money, so that's absolutely fine with her. So,
yeah, it just I think he would just default back to like his favorite water, just to kind of like wash just everything down with. And he kind of makes some comment about like, I know it's a bit odd, like pointing at the glass of water, but I find it, a bit too much like tonight in general, not just drinks, but yeah.
why is it odd to drink water?
I mean, it's not, but I'd say it's odd to drink water at a bar. I don't know. Nobody's really ever asked that before. But
Is it weird to drink water outside of a bar?
no, that's pretty much the natural thing to do.
So then why would it be any different inside of a bar?
I guess the majority.
Maya feels like she might be making people uncomfortable, so she's kind of looking around and she's going to order a water too because she has decided that is the normal thing to do. People drink water and she's going to drink water.
That's. I mean, I'll just say it's healthier. It's a lot more purified than whatever they put in the drinks here anyway. So
The bartender rolls her eyes. Two waters.
yes, please. And I hand her like more than I don't know, 10 glasses of water would be worth. I mean, like a fairly big tip just to appease her, I guess.
Well, tipping culture isn't a massive thing in Denmark.
Oh, is it not? Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
No, but so that means she's very grateful
Okay.
for all the krona you just put on the bar. So
Sure. Yeah.
she says, "You don't, Thomas. You're in here every Friday. You don't need to put this much down. But you know what? I'm going to keep this by for you. So if you do ever want a real drink, you've got a bit of money on a tab."
All right, fair enough. But one for you, one for yourself.
Oh, thank you. I'll have a water. She rolls her eyes and I'm working, Thomas.
Right, so I turn back to Maya and do you come here often? I've never seen you around before.
Maya would kind of take a second to think about that. She knows that this is kind of what people do. But she knows that this is what people do when they're at bars to pick people up, from her observation. And she's very confused because according to Thomas's friend, she is not his type. So she would just kind of stop and look at her water and look up at Thomas and very bluntly ask, Are you hitting on me?
No, no, absolutely not. You've seen my friend. I'm glad to be away from my friend, as it were. And this is the kind of place where people come to make new friends, even if it's not for that purpose.
So we are friends.
I'd like to be.
Okay. That's good enough for Maya. So she's content to just stand her with her new friend and drink her water like a normal person.
And I was just sort of like, as she's drinking or like doing whatever she's doing, like I'm not like obviously staring at her too, but I'm trying to watch her mannerisms to see if there's anything else off about her, basically.
From your basic study, without even having to make any kind of empathy roll, yes, there is definitely something off about her. You're not sure whether it is. Well, you can tell that she is pretty unacquainted with how to act in a social situation. But the truth of the matter is, you're not that comfortable in social situations. You don't have nearly as much of a, I guess, mental block. But there's more to her than just shyness. There's a mystery here. And one of the things that Kalia and your parents always told you is there are predators and there are prey. And every single person you grow close to, you need to find out whether they are someone who will prey on you or be prey for you. You can see why the Ivory Claws are such a functional family.
I mean, from Thomas' point of view, probably, considering what he's like learned about but anyway. I'll try to. I mean, he'll probably be kind of somewhat concerned about what she is, considering how he's sort of like picked up the scent. But he's trying to poker face his way to not seem as if he's noticed. Basically, I don't know if that needs a roll or if it's just sort of if you can do that without. Are you from Denmark? Are you visiting? Are you a tourist?
Yes, I was manufactured I'm from the United States.
Oh, I've never actually been. I mean, any place whereabouts? Like, I've always wanted to visit.
I was kind of sheltered. I didn't get out much. I think it's much prettier here. The people are a lot nicer, most of them.
Yeah, but so just helicopter parenting. You like just bad family, like that kind of thing.
A lot of helicopters. Yeah, lots of helicopters. Yeah, they were loud. Didn't like those helicopters.
Yeah, no, yeah. Even me and my parents, difficult, to say the least. So are you going to stay here? Like, is that like a permanent move?
Maya would kind of look around the bar and, well, doesn't look very comfortable. And I can't really find any charging outlets handy, but it'll do if I have to stay here, I guess.
As Maya looks around the bar, she notices again, and hasn't lost complete track of her initial target. It looks like in the brief period between you moving away from her and her coming back, she's clearly been drinking heavily and steadily, to the point that she is convinced a bartender that giving her the entire bottle would be a good idea. The interesting thing is the bottle is full, but she's still ordering shots of something else. So one hand is on a bottle of Bacardi. It's just on the bar. She's leaning on it. And she's slamming back vodkas even with your limited understanding of alcohol, drinking vodka straight is never pleasant, and certainly never a good idea for one's health. But she's doing this on a mission. You can tell she wants to lose all sense and sensation. You don't do this, unless you're trying to build up the confidence to do something. But even Thomas can see this now, seeing where you're looking, that someone drinking this much, well, there's a word for that, and it's suicidal. Now, before we get back to the two of you, we're going to go back to our changeling friend Connor. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here, and that is that shortly Liza will arrive at the Spring Courts bar. But Connor is going to get the opportunity to discuss with Takami and do whatever he sees fit first. You don't have to meet there. It would just be a nice convergence point if you decide to.
No, that makes sense. As much as my plan would be to eventually move on, I certainly wouldn't try to talk to Takami in a place that is actually bumping.
Well,
a location.
this place is definitely not that.
Exactly. So I do want to talk to Takami about the Winter Court in general, but my biggest questions are, one, why did, who is he? Because it's kind of, you should always ask someone who they are. So, who are you? What has brought you here? But what makes you you? You're a unique person. Why have you come here, and who are you?
Takami is a very reserved man, and old in appearance, wizened, but with it quite verbose. So when you reach the end of what you are asking him, he rattles on at length before letting you get a word in edgeways. I come from a long line. I come from a large court. This is not my court in Odense. I was sent here because of troubling reports. You see, while I am, of course, Japanese in heritage, I am not Japanese in background. I come from the court in Copenhagen, and I came to Odense to look for fellows in the Winter Court. Usually contacting each other would be a simple affair, but recently contact has died out. I often travel around between courts, you see. While Copenhagen has been my court of choice for the last year, I have moved around from Copenhagen. I've moved to Stockholm, Berlin. He then reels off another 12 locations. I never like to stay in one place for a long time. Sometimes it is because, as we all are, I have been hunted from one place to the other. And while never pleasant, it is useful and delightful to always see a different location, absorb the culture, absorb the fruits of labors and loves, and move on before they grow too old and atrophy. And I believe that winter, the best way to experience winter, is to experience it at its zenith, when it reaches that wonderful crystalline point where everything is possible, where the end of the world is beneath one's feet, and we can ascend to something greater, or we could tumble into nothingness. And every time I like to think that I have ascended to something greater. I have never joined a spring court, I should hasten to add, but that is because I am dearly devoted to winter. I take great pleasure, and he goes on and on about the philosophy of what it is to be Winter, what it is to be wizened, what it is to serve in courts from city to city. And by the time he finishes, you do wonder whether he has moved on of his own volition or whether people just kick him out because he won't shut up.
That does not particularly surprise me. Having heard all of that, but of course I'm going to be congenial and proper. There's no reason to start a fight here, and I'm just going to, widen my eyes a little and just go. You have led a incredibly interesting life. So many locations, so many courts to see. That's maybe that's something to aspire to. There is something to be said for settling roots in, but there is a lot out there. You make a good point. And it sounds like you've learned so much from your times and have seen so much. That's, well, that does sound like a tremendous way to live. You did say that the winter court here had reported some sort of problem or issue, and that was why they sent you to check up on things, right?
Once again, he takes a long time to get to the point. I remember the first time that I embarked upon an exodus. It was when I first emerged from the hedge. Yes, you're starting to see exactly why Jeffrey left you in his company.
Yep.
Oh, that Jeffrey. I remember the first time was when I found my family, and of course I had been replaced, as we often are, by a fetch that perfectly resembled me, but possessed none of the verbosity that I enjoy. And so my parents enjoyed his company immeasurably, and I felt betrayed. Should I remove the fetch? Should I reveal myself to them? No, I decided that would be a bad idea. I decided I would leave them with their happy delusion and move on to another location. I would constantly travel, and this goes on. But yes, getting to the point of Odense, a strange mystery, and I do enjoy a mystery. Have you ever played Sudoku? Sudoku is quite the mental stimulant, I find, especially on train journeys, and he goes on. But yes, Odense and the Winter Court. Now, I do not expect one such as yourself, always full of hope and vim in the Spring Court, to truly know what it is to be Winter, but one expects that while winter is a cold and sometimes hostile season, that there is always a hearth to warm the changelings of winter, that when gathered together we share tales, we sit around the fire, and we find companionship with each other. And there is none of that here. That ceased to be by reports 3 months ago. The Winter Court suddenly closed its doors, that anyone looking for refuge in Odense would no longer find it in winter. And you need to understand, young Connor, that in countries such as these, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, or what other Northern Hemisphere countries should I list? But I won't. Winter is of preeminent importance, as it ties to the mortal culture as well. And when a city loses the hearth of winter, it just becomes unrepentantly bitter. And if you are a changeling of the Winter Court, and you no longer have the hearth, you lose all hope. You wither, and you die. At least that is what I was told by some of my contemporaries in Copenhagen. And so we needed to find out exactly what had gone wrong with Winter and Odense. And of course I arrived here, and the person I was supposed to meet, is only about 2 hours away by train, was not here. we had only spoken earlier that date, and at first, you must understand, I have had many an occasion where I have announced my arrival in a city, and for whatever reason, no one has been there to meet me. Sometimes I find they have quickly packed a bag and headed somewhere else at short notice due to a family emergency or embarking on a sudden holiday that they won without knowing they entered the competition to win it. But in this occasion, it felt more unusual, like something had happened. And so my first recourse was to approach the changelings of other courts, because I am a friendly man. I like to get to know my fellow lost and exactly what exactly it is that they have to offer each other. I have never found that a court has disliked me, and no one has ever placed a pledge on my name for my destruction. And he goes on and on. My point was that I spoke to the members of the Autumn Court here in Odense, and needless to say, they knew nothing of Winter. They had connections, of course, which appear to have died out in the last couple of months, and they couldn't find a single Winter courtier for me. They used all the resources at their disposal. They seemed quite keen to move me on, but they couldn't find a single Winter courtier, and so I was quite disturbed. So I came here. They said, there is nothing else we can do to help. Bother Spring. And so here I came to bother Spring, as they put it. And Lady Goldacre was too busy to see me, so I spoke to my good friend Geoffrey, and here I am now. He reported something similar to Autumn, but we of Winter are good at hiding. Sometimes snowflakes are so small as to be difficult to find.
Yes.
Maybe you know of some of Winter's hiding places in Odense, because I searched the park, I searched all the common venues, and nothing there. But I hoped that at least someone from Spring, given that Winter has to hand over to Spring at some point, would know where to find some of my friends and family. Still, I have said my piece. I see you are holding your back as if you have been stood there for too long.
No, it's... What you say, as you know, is worrisome. That is not a typical response, and while I do not know the Winter well here, I have enjoyed their presence, and I worry for, my fellow lost. Yes, as you say, Winters are good at hiding, and one of the things that they do not tend to share is the where of that. That being said, I can certainly think about some of the places they might go. Could they not also have simply left?
But where would they go? Copenhagen is the nearest.
That's true. They would go to Copenhagen.
Even Stockholm, if they were feeling adventurous. Winter are not dominant in Stockholm, but we would know if they were there. And there were at least 6 changelings in Odense of the Winter Court at last count. I have not been able to find a single one.
Yes, that's way too many to have just all gone underground or all decided to take a holiday at the same time.
Well, stranger still, rumor was, and at least this was the case in Copenhagen, after our last grand battle with the gentry, the hunt the hunting horn had not been heard for many years, and that Denmark was a safe place for winter and those who would hide under its banner. We would have heard the horn if it had been blown again and there was a huntsman abroad attempting to find us. We would have heard it. Copenhagen is not that far. We would have been affected by it. There is something more insidious going on, I suspect, but I do not know what. It's around this point, by the way, that our friend Liza should arrive.
Okay. I will continue the conversation, but in the direction of agreeing that I don't think that the huntsman would make sense, because the other courts would have also known or been gone to for help or been a part of that fight, and nothing of that sort has occurred here in my knowledge, correct?
No, indeed. While there's often bizarre activity with things leaking through the hedge, snatching changelings back, attacking them, and the like, there hasn't been a huntsman rampaging through Odense in many years.
Okay. So I will continue the conversation along that vein while we see what Liza has to do, I imagine.
Yeah, as Liza enters, a thickly built woman cuts her off. This would be Jenny, the ogre. Not seen you in here before.
Nope, just new in town. Actually, noticing that I see similar traits with her, with the family resemblance that I would have with others. Would quickly make that connection. I was referred here by a rather chilly woman from the library. Had mentioned that spring was the place to be in Odense right now, so I figured I'd come check the place out.
Well, I'm something of a scout. I can see people like you coming, and so I knew you were coming here. Yeah, we've got another one of those chilly twats over there, talking to my good friend Connor. Are you hoping to take him away? Because I've got to be honest, this place is usually pretty dead, and right now it's filled with the sound of his voice, and I preferred it when it was dead.
That's weird though, because I thought they were all of the winter courtiers were leaving.
I've nothing to do with that story, I'm afraid. I'm just here to make sure no one is coming to harass Lady Goldacre.
Oh no, I know she's very particular. 100% will not be a problem. I do want to talk to the gentleman. You know, maybe at the end of the day he will end up getting out of your hair.
Jenny is looking you up and down. You are made of fascinating tales, aren't you?
Oh, so nice of you to notice.
Do you know Hans Christian Andersen? You know, the ugly duckling was from around here? I imagine you are full of fairy tales.
And Liza, being rather familiar with those works, would offer a simple smile and be like, I definitely have some stories I'd be happy to tell.
I've got a story for you.
Right, audience.
Before we part ways, here's a story for you. Wordy lady. Hans Christian Andersen didn't write any of his stories. I'll tell you who wrote all of his stories. He had a pygmy in a cage, suspended a few feet above the ground, made the pygmy write all of those stories. The pygmy was stolen from the Belgian Congo, kidnapped. And when the pygmy tried to escape, Hans Christian Andersen cut the pygmy's foot off, turned it into an umbrella rack. All those stories, the Ugly Duckling, the Little Mermaid, all those written by a Congolese pygmy.
So with Mimir's wisdom, Liza can tell if people are lying to her. Is this a true story?
As far as Jenny's concerned, yeah, absolutely.
That is fascinating. That would be Liza's response.
But you didn't know that before you came to our court.
Definitely did not. That is a very fascinating secret. How widely is that known, actually?
Well, not widely at all, but I can see that you're a lady of words, and I can appreciate that. Just because I'm an ogre doesn't mean I'm not well-read.
Huh. You know, we should talk more about this. I'm actually following up on a friend who has gone missing, but I would love to pick your brain about any more of these interesting stories.
Oh, well, if you think Hans Christian Andersen is weird, if you think that's weird, you should find out what those little marks in the margins of his diaries are denoting. I'm not going to tell you yet. You can look it up for yourself, because he was a strange cat, that's for sure. Anyway, I need to let you go before our wizened friend whizzes off. I'm going to let Lady Goldacre know you're here, because it would be impolite not to. She probably already knew, but...
Liza would nod and thank her for her time and be like,
sorry, what's your name?
Elizabeth, you can call me Liza.
Well, my name's Jenny.
Very nice to meet you.
It is nice to meet you. Always nice to meet new friends from new backgrounds with new stories to tell.
With that, I'm assuming that Liza can also kind of sense the mantle coming off of the wizened that she had pointed out, to confirm for herself that that is a fellow winter courtier, just like the one she'd met before.
Yeah, and you can see that the young man that she's talking to is shares the same mantle. Is of the Spring Court as Jenny is.
Okay.
They have more of a air of freshness about them rather than frigidity.
So Liza would approach the table where the two of them are, or approach where the two of them are. And she's not the most socially adept person in the world, so she just kind of butt in a little bit and address the winter court. She'd be like, I thought all of you were supposed to be gone.
Jenny calls over. She's all right. And then she goes over to Lady Goldacre. The wizened changeling looks at Liza. I'm sorry, who are you?
Oh, Elizabeth. I actually just spoke to, I guess, probably one of your friends. I don't know how many of you there are in this city still. She actually sent me here because she was on her way out.
What? He's getting up, sitting down. What? No, stop. Mrs. What?
I was in the library. I didn't get her name, but she was writing letters to a lot of people, and she's very doom and gloom. Something about leaving the city being a good idea, and that winter was never returning. They were closing the door.
No. That's not good. That's not good. Oh. And where did you meet this? Meet my fellow courtier?
Oh, the library. She's gone now, though. She was.
Did she say where she was going?
No. But the general vibe that I got was probably as far away from here as possible.
Oh, God. Drat.
What was that about the winter not? Could you go back to that part?
Oh, I mean, first, obviously, I'm not very familiar with your people, but the the terminology, I believe, is that winter would not be returning. And I actually don't remember the exact words, but Liza does have eidetic memory, so she would recount that interaction that had occurred to both of them, openly sharing her knowledge, hoping that this inspires them to share any that they have.
The wizard is shaking his head quite frantically. No, 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 no. Has to be at least one winter lost here. Yes, there has to be. Has to be. Oh, no, 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 that's me, isn't it? That's going to be me now.
Takami, actually, I'll ask this. Do I know of any reason why there has to be someone from every court in a town?
No. Certainly you've heard of the practice. It's fairly common, in fact. It's unusual for them to not be. But you haven't ever heard of there being some kind of...
like, supernatural reason?
No, it's not like reality will suddenly start breaking down. As far as you know.
Right, yeah. No, that's the... Takami, what is the issue with you being the only winter here?
Well, I'm not strong. I'm not strong enough. I'm a wanderer. I'm not a fighter. I'm a storyteller. I'm not a soothsayer. I've been to many places, but I'm never the person that has to hold the fort or hold the court or take up the mantle of lord or anything like that. No. That's not me. That's not me. If winter leaves Odin's, oh no. There's a winter plague that passes through, and I can't be the one responsible for curing it. The library, you say?
Yeah. Just came from there, but she is very gone, I think.
I need to speak to Lady Goldacre. I'm sorry, my friends. He marches straight over to Lady Goldacre. Lady Goldacre, I need to speak to you right now. I need to speak to you right now. And Lady Goldacre flings one of her cards at him. And he freezes in place. She looks to the rest of the spring court. Much like an icicle. Let's see if he melts after a fashion.
Does she look to be going right back to her cards, or is she continuing to address us?
She's chortling to herself, but might go back to her cards soon.
I will test the waters and see if, because I am a member of the court, I know things are only slightly different. I will test the waters and see if she seems to be in a sharing mood as she is entertained, or if she seems to be in the, no, you should still be leaving me alone.
Connor, you want my attention.
I had a question, if you would be so kind.
Only if you can answer two of mine. But I will pose one of them to your colourful friend.
Which friend has been pointed at?
The newly arrived Elizabeth.
Okay. I'll kind of look over my shoulder and call Elizabeth over.
Eliza would approach, seeing this as a potential in to do the whole "do not approach her" thing.
Yes. Absolutely. And say, the lady has a question for you, if you'd be so kind.
Of course. Anything I can answer.
What is the richest, and I do not mean most flavoursome, but richest one that sat on your tongue and stomach for a little too long meal that you have ever had?
As I would think back, that is a very interesting question.
And I think you know what I'm asking.
Yeah.
We in spring love new experience.
No.
Tick tock, tick tock. Cards won't play with themselves.
Well, they might.
So Liza, not generally being in the business of sharing, but really, really good secrets, would have to take a few moments to consider not only what the answer would be, but whether she really wants to share that information. But would eventually decide to share a particular instance in which she had discovered that for lack of a better word, demonic infestation back in the Americas had actually been orchestrated by a group of would-be amateur hunters trying to call on powers they didn't quite understand in order to pursue a relatively minor threat in their town, a vampire, as it were. And she would recall that the only way she was able to find that particular thing out was plumbing the echoes in a dream left behind by one of the deceased hunters after the demons had killed them all. It was fairly satisfying and rather destroyed the morale of all of their families when they found out that they were responsible for it.
That is sumptuous. However, I feel it may just be an entree. Still, I appreciate your candor. I appreciate the tale. We do love a good story here. And tell me, do the demons, what do they think of you now?
Oh, I try to avoid them.
Probably wise, probably wise. There's a few of them in this little town of ours. But I can keep a secret if you can. Now, Connor, I've asked you so many questions over the years. You must be thinking by now that there's nothing left to share with Lady Spring.
I think I've learned that that will never be true.
It will never, ever be true. And so I'm going to ask you something very recent.
Ah, yes.
Whilst you were listening to our dear Icicle here prattle on about his many travels, deep in your heart, what did you want to do to him?
Deepest in my heart, I'm pretty certain I simply wanted to beat him until he stopped being able to speak. That could have just been a broken jaw. I don't feel like I needed to detach his head. But oh yes, there was rage. Now I would not let that out, but that he is one of the most insufferable people I have met in many years. And so yes, I was definitely fantasizing about just popping him in the mouth. But yeah.
Delightful. Delightful.
Why is that kind of glances over like admirable honesty?
You learn to be honest when you're dealing with someone who knows if you're not.
Do you want a free hit now while he's frozen?
No.
Would it not carry the same satisfaction?
It would not carry the same satisfaction, and the question that I have might render him more needed.
Well, you know, I have tripped over my own curiosity. I've not just asked 2 questions, I've asked 4 questions. I asked 2 of each of you, and you answered because you were both so very generous. However, my offer still stands. 1 question. What is it that the 2 of you lovely creatures want to ask of me before I am drawn back into my game of cards?
I'm going to stop because now I have a second person that is also a part of this question. And I turn, and I be very carefully not to phrase this as the question. I will say, I was planning on inquiring about the needs of winter in this town and what occurs if there are none here in reference to this winter plague or famine. What is the question that you needed answered in case I am about to step on your feet there, Liza?
That's certainly a reasonable question. I might inquire about the whereabouts of a former acquaintance of mine that may have gotten caught up in this whole winter exodus away from the town.
Well, we can look into that separately.
Yeah, that seems less pressing. I'll be honest with you.
Yes, we can talk about that afterwards. Okay, lady. I would like to inquire both. My lady. Yes, very much my lady. Does this town have a winter plague that requires winter to be here to defend against it? What happens if there are no members of winter here, as I have found out that our friend Takami here is the only winter left in our little town?
Oh, it's oh so hyperbolic, my dear boy. Oh, so hyperbolic. You see, winter has got an overinflated sense of its own self-importance. Because the last time there was a little plague problem here, it was winter's responsibility for solving the issue. And the reason it was winter's responsibility is because widely we thought they had caused it. You see, the people in this city are prone to self-destruction. Happens every now and then. I couldn't tell you exactly why. It's certainly not my concern. It's never really concerned those of spring. But that kind of behavior is so winter. And so it is winter's responsibility to stop it before it gets too far. And 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 times they've done so. And the repercussions of it happening and them not being here to stop it, I expect our good friend the Icicle feels that it's going to look badly upon the Winter Court if they're not here to stop it. But I'm confident that someone else could fill that breach if Winter is incapable. Maybe they can't stop it because they are already infected with this plague. I think what you need to do is find some other people who are similarly affected. Winter got the preliminary warning. They knew when to get out. Maybe find some other people who are suitably scared, who feel this is a true danger to them, because it's not a danger to me. I don't think it's a danger to you or to your friend, but it's going to be a danger to some people. And I think all of us would like some answers. Follow the trail of self-destruction.
That makes sense, my lady. I will see if I can find people to pull together. Yes. Yes. No, that makes sense.
The cards are never wrong, dear boy, and I think you will be hearing of one of these self-destructive moments very soon.
Ah. Well, such as the cards say.
Stay close to your friend.
Yes, my lady.
Your stories, when you come back here, will be far more interesting for her company.
I do certainly enjoy having good stories. You know that.
Don't we all? Look at my statue, my icicle.
How long does he stay like that? That's kind of fascinating, actually.
I mean, my lady, he is still alive, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But I have done enough answering of your questions and your friends' questions. I would appreciate you both finding something else to do with your time.
Liza would immediately turn around and take several steps away to not be turned into an icicle.
I will give her a traditional, whatever it is I feel like she expects from a head nod or I don't know. Yeah, she's pretty old. She might be a full bow person, but the correct goodbye to the lady.
Yeah, it never hurts to be completely formal with the lady of a court.
Exactly. So I will give her the proper goodbye bow and say by your leave, my lady, and walk off to chat with my new friend, as it were.
Well, before we do, because we're soon going to be wrapping up this session.
Yes.
We're going to be going back to the other club, where something dramatic is about to occur. Maya's source of fascination before Thomas got in the way and tangled things up will probably vex her for a very long time now. She will question herself whether she could have stopped this if she'd just paid more attention, if she hadn't been distracted by this wiry man with beer stains down his shirt from where he spilt his drinks earlier, if she hadn't succumbed to sympathy and trying to get involved in two friends apparently bickering. Because what she sees, she can't explain, and for that matter, Thomas can't either. As I say, both of their attentions were drawn to the young woman at the bar, who until now had been filled with rage, real consuming anger. Neither of you knew the reason. But suddenly, she's smashing the neck of the bottle of Bacardi. People back away. It's what you do when you see someone smashing a bottle at a bar. You wonder if someone's about to be glassed, someone's about to be attacked. But what she does is suddenly upturn this bottle over her head, and there's a torrent of rum that rolls down through her hair, over her face. It seems almost refreshing to her. She closes her eyes, she breathes through it. And it's all done with one hand. It's what happens with her left hand that you take too long to notice. As with her left hand, quite deliberately, quite swiftly, she has a cigarette lighter. And she just flicks it open. She strikes it. And that much pure alcohol running over her means she goes up like a Roman candle. Even to something as inhuman and automated as Maya, it's impossible not to stand back in shock. Maybe it's a new emotion she never even knew she had. Even something as ferocious and bestial as Thomas is capable of being, even with Thomas having encountered fire-touched pure before now, this behavior it's terrifying. And now I turn it over to you to see out our epilogue. What are Maya and Thomas doing?
Maya is watching. She doesn't really have much context to know that she should be doing anything. The only times that she has ever seen anyone try to come to somebody's rescue is when there is an emotional connection. And not having that, she doesn't act, there is nothing there for her to act on. She is extremely bothered, I think is the best word. And she doesn't exactly know what this unsettling emotion in her belly is, but she knows that even weird people aren't that weird, and that for something that extreme to have to be happening, then, it's more than just a bad day. So she's a little enamored and entranced by this curiosity, as it were, and is not quite aware of how weird that might come off to everyone else watching. She's just standing there sort of staring at this fire and trying to figure out why this woman was so angry, and if she was so angry, why she hurt herself and not other people, as Maya is used to angry people doing.
Thomas is, he knows technically he's supposed to be watching Maya. He knows that humans don't matter as much as werewolves do, and he shouldn't be becoming part of a scene or making a scene, but the human instinct is still to, if he can find a coat or something anywhere, to try to wrap her in the fabric, if he can find a coat in the first place.
Yeah, there's you find there's a coat slung over a bar stool.
I'll try to, as much as I can, wrap it, to cover onto it, to like douse, like to kill the flames, but I'm not sure if that's actually going to help or work.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, yeah.
Did everyone just get a connection lost?
It might have been on my end, because like just Canadian internet is notoriously awful. So sorry.
No, it was quite all right. Apparently, we're still broadcasting.
Okay.
But what I'm going to suggest now is, if we are still broadcasting, hello viewers, what we will actually do is end that session with the immolation, and the reaction will be the beginning of the next session. Because if we did lose our footage at this point, then that's actually a good place to cut off, and means there's no awkward restart. So with that said, thank you very much, everyone. If you can see this, thank you for watching.
Thank you for running it. Yeah,
that's great. I'll click stop broadcast, but then we can all chat away for a little while. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching the full uncut, almost 3-hour game of Contagion Chronicle, and we will see you next time.